order on Monday, October 27th. Sabrina, would you please take roll?
Mr. Carmichael.
Here.
Mrs. Saniak.
Here.
Mr. Cook. Mr. Knutson.
Here.
Mr. Preister.
Here.
Mrs. Blood.
Present.
This meeting will be conducted in accordance with the Open Meetings Act, which is posted in the entry to the council chambers. I'm Kathy Saniak. I'm president of the City Council, and in the mayor's absence today, I'll be presiding at this meeting. As a voting member of the council, well, there's no voting now, but as a member of council, I count as number 4 in the quorums, so we can conduct this meeting. All right, first up, we have employee years of service recognition for October.
Okay, for October, years of service. The first gentleman from the library, Gordon Wyant, I don't see him here, but he has his 1-year anniversary, so we'll be sure and thank Gordon and make sure he gets his certificate. At the 5-year category, we have an employee here from the street department, Dan Driscoll. Dan, if you can please come forward.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We usually have employee, Dan, don't go too far. I'm not sure if he has his camera here. Is Phil back there? Okay, we'll see.
Phil?
Anyway, we have a few more employees here. We'll keep going. Okay, we'll wait till the end and then we'll do one picture.
I'll wait till the end.
Yep, no, but you can, I'm sorry, I'm confusing you. Stay here until everybody's done. Yeah, and then we'll do a group shot, okay? At the 10-year mark from the Parks Department, we have Karen Chandler. Karen. Congratulations, Karen. We also have an employee from the Fleet Department, Matthew Rippey, who was not able to attend, so we'll make sure he gets his certificate. And then from the Planning Department, we have Tammy Palm here today. Tammy, if you can come forward for her tenure. 10. Yes, congratulations, Tammy. And then we have an employee with a 15-year anniversary with our transportation, Milt Butcher from Human Services. Milt, if you'll come forward. Thank you, Milt. And our longest employee on this, for the, oh yeah, Milt, stay here. For the October.
Gotta get a picture.
That's kind of mandatory.
After I saw 4 of them, I would have gotten.
At the 35-year mark, but he's not here, unfortunately. James Rybar with our police department is at 35 years. So congratulations to Jim, and we'll give him his certificate. Thank you, everybody.
Tammy, or you want to get behind here? I'll go. Okay. Here, Mel. Okay, you can see you. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Here we go. Thank you.
3B, we have a discussion on street lighting with OPPD representatives Steve Fanslaw and Bert Adams. Did I get those names right?
Yep.
Thank you. Come on up.
I don't know if you guys want me to just start. Last time we were here, we talked about possibly looking at 20-foot tall poles with 70-watt fixtures on it. I did a little research in the city of Lincoln. That's what Lincoln does, as you were. When I compare our two rates, the rates would be about the same if we went with 20-foot poles, because similar to their rate. Their rate doesn't include installation, doesn't include maintenance. If a knockdown doesn't include, I guess those main two things, and our rates do. So if we were to move towards the 20-foot rate, the rates would be the same either way we went. So what my suggestion would be, at least going forward on new streetlight installations, would be just to go to we can do with the 240-foot spacing on new stuff, just use our 25-foot poles still, just because the rate would be the same. We just space them out 240 feet. What else to talk about?
Another thing, Donna, we'd like to talk about is pursuing some of the LED stuff.
Oh.
Sorry, excuse me. Pursuing some of the LED options that we talked about over the last meeting and last month. We've done some research on that, and we'd like to get together in a workshop type format with a few of the people from the council so we can really talk about this. I know in the last meeting you talked about being prepared for the November 24th meeting. I think passing this ordinance this evening or now or this evening, I think that would be fine because it would allow you guys to space out the new installations, any streetlights that you requested new. I don't know if the lighting pattern would be affected that much. Bert's done a lot of work on that, but really like to have the opportunity to get together with some of you in a workshop type format and talk about the pursuing the LEDs, some of the options that you've researched with the City of Blair, also the City of Omaha, things like that. So I think we could really have some good discussion on moving forward options for the City of Bellevue.
Any more questions? Councilman Preister?
Deja vu. Thank you for coming back again this time.
Yeah.
When I did the calculations of the 4,700 lights you had, and I multiplied it by approximately $400. Gotta use my microphone too. The cost of the changeover to LED lights, it came to just under $2 million, the cost. But if we're cutting the electricity use in half and LEDs go anywhere from 50 to up to 80% reduction in electricity, that would be a payback period of just over 4 years or under 4 years. However, OPPD doesn't give us a rate commensurate with the reduced use of electricity. I think that's because you don't want to lose that nighttime load, that off-peak load, but I don't exactly know that. It seems that Blair is only getting a 15% reduction for their LED lighting rather than a 50 or 60% reduction. At this point, Blair would like to negotiate that, and I'm told OPPD has been looking at that for a couple of years and hasn't really resolved that. And Omaha is wanting to look at it. I think all of the cities are wanting to look at it because it's going to save us a lot of money. Omaha about $6 or more million a year, Bellevue $500,000 or more a year. OPPD has a stated goal of reducing demand side usage. So we're all on the same team. I think we need to have the meeting you suggest, but I think it needs to be metro-wide. I think we need to find out and understand exactly what we can do to help OPPD deal with that reduction at non-peak time and be able to get that rate. You guys do a great job, and I know that's an issue, and I kind of understand it, but I don't understand it from your perspective. So if you could help us coordinate a meeting like that, because all the cities are interested. We're all looking at it real hard for that much savings. I don't know that we're going to get that done by the date we've set out, so it may be a little longer term for the LEDs, but it's coming. The technology is there. It's better lighting. It's more efficient lighting. The technology has been pretty well perfected, so at this point, I think we need to move in that direction, and I would welcome your comments about how we do that.
I couldn't agree more with everything you said, Don. What we need to do, what's driving it is the fixture cost. We were here last month, and I touched on that. As soon as that fixture cost drives down, and it's beneficial to all of our ratepayers, so we don't have a huge streetlight rate increase because of material costs, right. That's when I think everybody's all in. Blair did it with a grant that they had, so they bought all the fixtures. I know you know all that history, so that might be something that the City of Bellevue could look into doing, that we would partnership with you in pursuing some of those grant opportunities. But I agree with you that the technology's here. OPPD is just waiting right at the front step for that material price to lower. When that material price lowers and it's compatible and workable for all of our streetlight customers, there's no doubt we'll go on board. I mean, I've been at OPPD long enough where I've seen the mercury vapor to high pressure sodium conversion. So now it's LED, HPS, high pressure sodium to LED. So it's right there. So this workshop meeting that I'm going to throw out there, I'd really enjoy meeting. We would enjoy meeting with just the city of Bellevue first to talk about this and gather some of those things. And then we are way open to opening it up to the other communities and having a group workshop that OPPD would host. So, so we could talk about those things, all the costs, any kind of question that could come up, because there's no dumb questions. So any question that anybody would have, it'd be an opportunity to ask it at that format. So I think after we have something like that, everybody will be more educated on the LED conversion, which is right at our front step. So. If you give me a chance, I will coordinate that meeting with folks through Jeff and see who would like to invite. We can have it down at Energy Plaza. We could have it here. We come down and we can talk about streetlights all day long. That'd be great.
Sure. And the reason that we suggested doing it here is because it's a public format.
Sure.
And we could all hear the same questions,
You bet.
hear the same answers. If we do it in small groups, because it could only be done that way outside of this setting, then it would either have to be noticed or in small groups, and we don't all hear the same questions, we don't all hear the same answers. Even though you're given the same information, the same questions may not come up.
Right.
So we were hoping that what you're suggesting would happen right here, right now.
Oh, well, I think we're prepared for it if you want to have that covered. I want to give us time. I mean, I want to give us, I don't know what your
Right.
format is here right now, this minute, but we can sure do it. We can talk now if you'd like, sure. I mean, what kind of questions do you guys have? LED, fixture prices, things like that. I think the comments you made at the last meeting would be in the area of $2 million if you did the simple math where you took the fixture cost times the sheer number of poles you have. So say the city went out and did that. They bought 5,000 fixtures. Another cost that would be involved is who would do that conversion. The city would have an option to hire an electrical contractor to do that, or they could hire OPPD out to do that. We'd have to give you an estimate of what that cost would be. And then I believe Bert can talk about if that conversion happened, the 4,700, 4,800 streetlights, if that conversion did truly happen, how long that would take. Don't know how long that would take. We'd have to look at that. But Bert has some rate information on what the city of Bellevue would save. You did the math of about $500,000 a year just on the current LED rate that OPPD has now. Bert looked into that, and I believe it's more closer to about $310,000, $312,000 annual based on the current LED rate that we have now.
Right.
So you're not too far off with your math as far as $2,500,000 in 4 years. It would pay for itself. There would be some cost once again to do that conversion, the physical labor to take that down and put a new one up. So you know, your 4 to 1 or 5 to 1 year payback is right on, Don. We have to procure a fixture. First, we have to research them. And since our last time we were here, we've had some phone calls, since it was a public format, from some I'll say fixture vendors. So we've been getting some phone calls like that. We'd have to procure a price or secure a price for a fixture and then get a price of labor to do it. We could provide that for you for what OPPD would charge, or you could research your own, hire your own contractor, do that work, talk schedules and timelines, and then as pockets of them got done, we would start reducing the bill or change the bill from the current metal halide rate or high pressure sodium rate to the new LED rate. So your savings would start trickling in, but the big hurdle is getting those 5,000 fixtures. How much is that going to cost? Where are we going to put them? Things like that. But you know, we could work with you. I mean, we could have those fixtures delivered to one of our sites, and if we were your contractor to change those fixtures out, we could do those things too. So there's some logistical things that we'd have to work out, but it can be done. But like I said, the big hurdle is finding the right fixture and securing that price for 5,000 of them.
And that's not going to happen immediately. It's likely to be a phase in. It's going to take us some time.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to do is start the process of getting us closer to doing it rather than just not doing anything or putting it off. And so I appreciate the discussion. One of the things that I want to get back to when you said our rate of return would be closer to 300,000 is that you said that's at the current rate. And I think that's an area that the cities are looking at. The current rate is not the amount that we would like to see because it doesn't reflect the full reduction in electricity. So being able to figure that out and work on, I think it would be helpful for us, rather than spend a lot of time now, if you could just get us a list of what the challenges are and what those challenges are as you see them, and any formulas or any information that goes into helping you make that decision. And then we can understand where you're coming from, so we can try and help find a solution. Or I'm willing, and I think there are other people that are willing to help you find a solution. Because I know, as I say, the whole metro area, everybody in your service area is interested, because
Yeah.
I've heard from most of them.
And you're correct, they are. It's just that fixture price. That's the driver. But we can get all that information together for you and present it in this format, or invite a few of you folks down and do it that way too. So however, we do both ways, however you guys like to do it.
Okay. I appreciate your extra time coming down, and thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Councilman Knutson.
Chris, I was just kind of a question on, we just approved a new subdivision agreement with a housing area. Would that affect that at all? Is there something that we could do to change how they're going to go about lighting their subdivision, or is that in there already, or?
The subdivision agreement for Spring Ridge that was just approved at the last meeting did not have a requirement for LED lights. They would install lights under the current regulations, working with OPPD and the city on spacing, and I assume using the standard OPPD light fixtures that are out there now.
Okay, but I mean, if this was gonna be a cheaper deal for them, as far as I know, the fixtures, we haven't got a definite price on, but using shorter poles and spacing them further apart, would that be a cost savings for them on that subdivision? Is that something maybe we could work with them on if this is a feasible deal, and that's where we could start our phase in of this?
Yeah, we can certainly look at it and talk with the developer. One of the concerns I know on the new developments is the upfront cost of the LED lights. Whereas on the standard lights that we do now, OPPD installs them and basically pays for them, and they get their rate,
Up
their
through the
standard
power
rate.
rate, okay.
But when you install the LED lights, that's an upfront cost of $400 to $500 per light to the developer, and ultimately probably the SID,
Okay, thank you.
which is a concern.
Be a better idea.
And I think that's a good point. I think, though, at this point, if we start converting, we want to have uniformity. We want to have the same type of lights so that in one.
I agree with you. If we start converting, we certainly would say, that'd be a time to change our subdivision regulations and the subdivision agreements to say, you have to put in the same lights that we're converting to.
Right. So all of the LED lights would be the same type of fixture rather than they're all different brands and all different styles all over the city. It would be logistically very difficult to send crews out to try and change and keep track of what brand and what style is where. So I think that's why it's good to do it metro-wide, so that it's uniform everywhere, it's consistent. We work out all those details. I just don't want us to let this languish. I want to move on it quickly. The sooner we start the process, the sooner the year or whatever it's going to take us to get it all worked out goes by, and I want to get something started while I'm still on the council.
All right, in summary then, gentlemen, you will provide us with some written information, facts in regard to this, and we'll coordinate through Jeff Roberts about having another discussion, correct? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is the city administrator's report. Comments must be limited to items on the current city administrator's report. Are there any questions?
Kathy, oh, go ahead.
Councilman Carmichael.
Thank you, ma'am. Dan, can you give us, I know there's an article in the paper I found out today on the Resolution 527 from the state of Nebraska that you attended. Can you give us a synopsis of what came of that meeting?
Well, it probably referred to the fact that the government, veteran, military, and Veteran Affairs Committee, I got that all out, it's a lengthy committee. They're holding public hearings on an interim study, which was to, I guess you might say, assess why there's such a lengthy process, time-wise, for governmental entities such as municipalities to be reimbursed for natural disasters, emergency situations. Looking not only at Nebraska Emergency Management Agency, but also potentially even beyond that to FEMA. Finance Director Severson and Public Works Director Roberts went down to Lincoln on Friday. I did testify before the committee in particular in regard to our 2011 flood event, the fact that we incurred costs during that event of a little over $2.3 million, that to date we had only been reimbursed federal dollars, no state dollars, 20%, 20%, which was just a little under $400,000. NEMA funding of about $285,000. We had not received any state dollars. The concern being that if the state emergency management agency is understaffed, that the legislature look at either staffing the agency where they can, in a more expedient manner, handle review of projects and eligibility for funding, then of course moving that up to FEMA so the federal dollars can flow down, or contract out if the legislature does not want to fund additional staff for the agency. Maybe a private entity that could assist them with review of projects in a more timely manner. And that our concern also was that under the current process, the state does not issue their 12.5% of the 25% local match requirement until after all the projects, all the paperwork and everything is completed on a particular disaster. Only then does the state issue their funding. And of course, from municipalities such as Bellevue, Blair, Nebraska City, the concern is we end up having to upfront a lot of expense and have to wait for a considerable amount of time to be reimbursed. So I went down, I testified in particular on our situation, the number of communications we'd had with the state, and the fact that we felt that there should be steps taken to assure that we're reimbursed in a more timely manner. The other city that testified, Irv Portis, who's the city administrator at Plattsmouth, testified regarding their particular situation. And then there was the assistant director for NEMA, who pretty much, you might say, gave a review of how NEMA handles requests for funding, and in terms of working with municipalities, working with the federal government. It was pretty clear that the state's position is that they're not going to upfront any of the costs with state dollars, that they have to wait for FEMA. And so it was also discussed, was there something that could be done then to might say, spur or help facilitate the federal government to be more expedient in funding. I'd indicated that we've had conversations, at least Bellevue's situation, with our congressman, Congressman Terry, Congressman Fortenberry, Senator Deb Fisher. So they will take this and then determine how they're going to address it. Whether they'll, excuse me, I have a cold, whether they're going to do it through appropriations, additional funding for staff, or exactly what the outcome will be.
Any other questions on the city administrator's report?
Just jump in, if I don't lose my voice. Attached to the report was an update on the strategic plan. Councilmember Preister had some questions, and I think we've addressed a couple we still need to address. And I just touch on those real quick for the record. One of the things we're working on as part of our comprehensive plan is a new energy element to it. Is required by state statute that by January 1st that there be an element that addresses energy efficiency, energy conservation, the whole area of energy sustainability. That is being worked on. That'll be coming to the Planning Commission for adoption on time. We also, and I get to it real quick. We had an item on there in regard to energy audits, and obviously we're not quite where we had hoped to be. We are looking at working on doing energy audits of some of our facilities, in particular, for instance, some of the district fire stations. But we still have a ways to go on that particular one. There was an item too in regard to dealing with misinformation, rumors, gossip, that type of thing that we're constantly dealing with, and what steps we take from a city standpoint to address it. Then obviously you look at both an internal element and an external element. Externally, it wasn't in the report, but we're trying to utilize our social media to do a better job of correcting misinformation that gets out into the public, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, or it be our website, getting information out. Some of that, we filters up to us, and when we become aware of it, we try to get it correct information out. Internally, one of the things we do from a management standpoint is that if we have misinformation internally, to make sure through top management directors that we get the correct information to our employees internally. We are working on a civility policy. In addition to the element of request to be heard that's going to be brought forward here soon in terms of with public meetings, we're also working on a policy that would apply to, obviously we have internal policies that apply to our employees, but we're also looking at civility policies that would apply to our customers, which are the citizens, so our employees know how to address situations where it could be a confrontational situation, an intimidating situation, and also that way the public knows what we expect of them. So the other element was Councilmember Sanyuk had requested that as we're looking at areas for improvement at sidewalks that we not overlook Fontanelle area, and especially in regard to the schools that are there. And so that'll be definitely we'll make sure that we don't overlook that.
Thank you.
As part of our process. I think those were some of the key elements, and I answer any other questions.
All right, thank you. Next, number 4, review and discussion without action of items on the agenda of the regular council meeting at 6 p.m. We'll start with 3A through C. Any questions? 4, approval of claims. Councilwoman Blood?
Yes, I noted that we had some monies that were going to 1510 Wall Street, and my question was in reference to the Wall Street properties. I'd sent several emails in reference to Essex Construction and Bressler Construction. We've got some subcontractors, Jeff and Dan, that had drywallers that were not paid, and I wanted to know what the status was on that. I have issue. I know that we're not supposed to get involved with this, and I certainly don't want to micromanage people doing construction for the city of Bellevue, but here's the issue that I take with it, is that it's been going on for about a month that we've known about it. And if we pay people to do work and then they subcontract out, and those subcontractors have workers that do the work, those people have families to feed. And if they don't get paid when they do the work, and we've gone ahead and paid the companies, then either we need to get a refund. That's my first choice. Okay? Or they need to pay their employees. And then I also think that we need to put them on some sort of a hit list, not do business with these people again, because it's bad business when you don't pay your employees. And I've researched this, and it's not a matter of these people not doing quality work, and it's not a matter of these people not doing the work. It's a matter of these people taking the money and not paying their employees. So I wanted to make sure that we put this on public record, that Essex Construction and Bressler Construction did not pay their drywallers. And I want to know what we're going to do about it as a city, because that's bad business. And I know that we aren't usually going to get involved with things like this, Dan. I don't need to be told that again. I want to know what we're going to do about it, because this looks bad for the city of Bellevue. This gives us a black eye. We've got this beautiful facility that's for cops, and they're all about justice, right? All right, so let's do the right thing and not put a black mark on these great guys and gals that do nothing but uphold justice. And let's make sure that these people that are doing this work can feed their families.
Go ahead, Dan.
In regard to Bressler, we did check into that. As far as Jeff had checked into it, Cheever did not have a contract with Bressler, but they did with Essex with the subcontractor. Is that correct, Jeff? I'm winging it from memory here.
Which means what?
The subcontractor subcontracted another company, and it's that, I know it sounds funny, but it's the subcontractor didn't pay the contractor that they subbed out. So that would be like the third subcontractor to the general contractor.
Which I comprehend, but it's still people not paying people. And so how do we resolve this?
Well,
Instead of saying it's
that's
somebody
a
else's
tough
fault, which
situation
is somebody
because
else's fault.
we don't hold retainage on that subcontractor, so we don't have really anything to come back on. I have requested to get contact information a couple of times, and today I still have not received any contact information.
Okay, so walk me through this. Okay, so where did it start with? Who was the first company that did the hiring?
Okay, the general contractor, who is Cheever,
Okay, Cheever
their
hired,
subcontractors.
I'm sorry, Cheever hired who?
They hired all their subcontractors.
Okay, so who was the first subcontractor that got hired?
I'm not sure which one it was of those
Okay.
two companies. And then that company, because they were getting behind on schedule, from what I understand, they went out and hired another company to help them.
Okay,
So
which
that
is
third
logical
company
and
was,
makes sense.
should have been contracted at the second one, but I think it was just more of a handshake kind of thing, from what I understand. But then again, that's far enough down the
Illegal and
line
bind-
that I'm not privy to all that information that's going on. I deal strictly with the general contractor. Otherwise, we take responsibility for everybody that falls underneath them.
Pat, do they owe us money back if they're not paying their employees?
This is an issue between the companies, the subcontractor and the subcontractor. We deal with the general, and when the general says something's done, we pay on performance, and it's a battle between them. We're really not a party to the issue.
I understand we're not a party to the issue, but granted the work is done, but we pay them money to get the job done, but there's employees that we're giving them money to do the job, but if they're not using that money to pay their employees, I mean, ultimately, we're being lied to, right?
Well, I don't know if we're being lied to. The issue is you have to have privity of contract. You've got to have some association. We don't have any real association there. The battle is between who didn't get paid and who was supposed to get paid, and we don't really have any position to interject in between that.
Well, that seems like a shame. That seems pretty unethical, and it seems like a shame that we can't find a way to take some kind of stance on this. I know Councilman Carmichael and I were speaking about that earlier, and we were speaking about this earlier. And this isn't the kind of companies that we want to do business with as a city, because we certainly don't want people to have to do work and then not be able to go home and feed their families. This is not how we want to do business as a city. So how do we stop this from happening?
I mean, to some extent, I think it's a little difficult from two standpoints. For instance, if I'm not paying the guy who mows my yard at my office, that doesn't remove the fact that you guys still owe me a legal bill for my legal fees. You may say I don't want to do business with Sullivan if he's not going to pay the guy to mow his yard.
No, that's different.
Well, not really. But the second thing is we sit here and we know somebody didn't get paid, but we don't have both parties here telling us what the circumstances, and there could be some contractual issues, there could be some other issues between the parties that we may not be privy to as well.
If I was paying you as our city attorney, and you had a legal aid helping you, and that legal aid helped you for something important for the city, and I found out after the case was done that after 6 months of work or a month of work that you didn't pay that legal aid, I'd be saying, what the heck, Pat, pay that legal aid. To me, that'd be the same type of circumstance. Somebody mowing your lawn would not.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you in that circumstance, but that wouldn't remove the obligation of the city to pay me. And there may be an
Right, I
issue
agree- I
between
agree
me and
that.
that legal
I agree
aid
with that.
person. And so it's hard to say without having both parties explaining their positions. But the bigger difficulty is that's contracts between the two of them. And if ultimately you make a decision that that wasn't handled properly, then that's when you're taking bids for businesses. You say, I don't know that I necessarily want to do business with those folks.
Well, and I guess ultimately, can we start some sort of hit list in Public Works where we say that we don't want to do business with people that can't pay their employees?
Mr. Burley.
I guess what I
And
would,
can we also take a stronger stance where we say, you know, ultimately, this is something that we don't approve of, and the fact that they keep passing the hat and blaming so many subcontractors and saying, well, you know, it's not our fault, we hired a subcontractor who hired a subcontractor who hired a subcontractor. Where does the buck stop and say, you know, somebody has to be ethical and stand up and say, you know what, we just want to put a stop to this. We don't want to point fingers. We just want these people to be paid, and somebody needs to step up to the plate. I'm just really disappointed that nobody's stepping up to the plate and taking care of this. And I'm not blaming you, and I'm not blaming Dan. I'm just saying I'm really disappointed that nobody's stepping up to the plate and taking care of this.
Councilman Carmichael.
Thank you. Carol and I talked about this before. I was unaware that there was a subcontract to the subcontract. Carol, if they did not have a written contract with the subcontractor, a shame on them. If they went out and did a handshake to do labor.
But we don't even know that for a fact, though.
We don't know anything at this point.
Right.
So, I mean, as Pat has given us legal advice, we don't have a dog in this fight. Cheevers did their job. They probably had a contract with subcontractor one. Subcontractor one should have had a contract with subcontractor two. And I would bet that didn't happen based on what Mr. Roberts says. So I think that in that context, I don't know what else we can do. We can't hold money back and then pay the subcontractor or the subcontractor because we didn't have a contract with them.
Councilman Preister.
yeah, can I interject real quick? And then, what Steve says, if we were to hold, we would be in breach of our agreement with the general contractor. In regard to putting it on a hit list, we're really cautious of that. The federal government has what they call a barred list. So when you apply for federal dollars, they have a list, and you check it to make sure you're not using someone who, through either failure to perform or, you know, other legal issues that the federal government would not allow you to use our dollars for. Probably where we'd have some ability going forward would be, okay, and hopefully in the not-too-distant future, we'll be moving up to the BAE building, okay? And we'll have to go out for bids because we'll have some work that we need to have done in that building to maybe finish it up, or maybe the one adjacent building. As you're going out for, say, bids for a general contractor, you know, if we had concerns with them maybe hiring this sub, it maybe be something in a pre-construction meeting you could bring to the attention of the general, saying, you know, in the past project, there was an issue with a particular sub, and so we would be concerned about them maybe being involved in future work if there was a bad track record. There's times you can do that. If a vendor or a contractor has bad history with us or with someone we've used, at that point in time, as we're hiring a general, we probably would want to bring that to their attention, and that way they would be aware of it, and, you know, that maybe if that person, you might say, submitted bids for sub work, maybe the general at that point would say, well, you've got a bad track record, the city's not comfortable with us using you, and therefore we're going to use someone else. So that's one avenue, but That's the only thing I can really think of going forward where we'd have any basis to do anything. Steve indicated we really can't go beyond our contractual agreements, and if we withheld dollars from Cheever, they'd come back on us for failure to pay them for work, because work was completed.
I'm not
Work-
saying,
So,
I'm not necessarily saying withholding money from them. The thing that I question though, Steve, you know, I find it doubtful that a union shop didn't have a contract, because these were labor workers. Don't you?
This wasn't a union job.
But the workers that I talked
They didn't
to
have to
were
do
from a
anything.
local.
They didn't have to pay union wages or anything like that. They weren't obligated with the Davis-Bacon.
The people that I spoke to were from a local.
Well, whether they're from a local or not, it's a right-to-work state, number one. And number two, as Dan said, maybe we need to do a little bit better job of requiring our general contractors to provide us proof of contract with the subs, and if the
I
sub
agree.
does that, he needs to provide us proof of that contract.
I
At
agree.
this point, I think this falls on the drywall company that did the work or performed the work for that subcontractor. We don't have a dog in this fight, Carol.
Councilman Preister, did you want to say something?
If everybody is
Yeah.
point. I appreciate that Councilwoman Blood is advocating for people who did work. We see the quality of work is done good, whether it had to be I don't know any of the details, but it's admirable that we look out for working people who didn't get paid. I appreciate the fact that we don't have a contract with whoever did the work. We have the contract with Cheever, and that went forward. In the future, I agree, it would be good to oversee and make sure we've got some things in future contracts. But at this point, although there are things we may not do, we can't do, and legally we're not obligated to do, I would like to know, what can we do to get the two parties, the aggrieved party and the party who didn't pay, to mediation, to resolution, to get them to work out whatever, it's their problem. I acknowledge that, not ours. But I don't want to be responsible for having a building that's a wonderful building, that has a wonderful reputation, that's serving the police and serving our community very well, tarnished by having some people still not paid after it's complete. So my question again, rather than having that tarnishment, which I think is what Councilwoman Blood is saying, what influence can we have on that subcontractor legally to get them to sit down and work it out?
Legally, we have very
A
little.
letter
but
coming
we
from
do
the city?
have, the only real horsepower of any sort that you may have in the process is this idea of, if there is not a legitimate reason for the payment, that they end up becoming a company that you don't do business with. But the difficulty is we don't know the full circumstances of this thing, and before we throw that dagger out, we better make sure that we know all the circumstances that are around it. What occurred in this circumstance occurs more often maybe than not. And so the fact that we've got one person out here not getting paid is actually pretty astounding in the construction industry. It happens regularly, it happens often. And there may be some relationships or issues between these two companies that we don't know, or somebody says, hey, you still owed me 10 grand from the previous thing you worked on, and that's why I'm not paying you. That's why I'm saying before we jump to that conclusion, we really need to know if there's a legitimate reason why they're not getting paid.
Mr. Burks?
I'd be happy to work with Jeff and get some of the details regarding the involved parties and contact the Better Business Bureau. They sometimes will contact the people that have a complaint against them if they are members of the Better Business Bureau.
I think on behalf of the city, it would be wise for you to contact the business and get their side of the story, and maybe get both sides, and then try and get them to resolve it. It is their problem, but we're in the middle of it. So we would like them to resolve it.
I can get the details from Jeff and the involved parties and the contact information and go from there.
With Dan's okay,
Mr.
I would
Berlitz.
like to see something.
I have no problem with that. I will say that at this point, we tried to research it as thorough as we could, going through Cheever, finding out in terms of, and of course, during the process of the work being done, because we had weekly meetings, progress meetings, and there were times when issues came up and problems. You know, sometimes some of these issues don't come to light at a meeting like that, because you're dealing with the project manager and you're dealing with the main subcontractors like Dave Compton of DC Electric. You know, they'll come, or maybe his foreman will come. So we can try to delve into it, you know, and potentially, you know, write letters, suggest that they get together and work it out. Beyond that, there's not a lot we can do. The reason why I interjected going forward is that if it's someone who's been involved in work for a City of Bellevue project or within the area, then it's conceivably going forward with other projects, they may be a sub again or involved in that. Because I've had this happen in other situations, not in Bellevue, but some other cities where we had bad experience with either a general contractor or a subcontractor on whether it be a street project or a sewer project, or and indicated, you know, we're not going to do business. We won't do business with them directly, or we'll make sure the general knows that, because we don't want to have a substandard work being done, or we don't want to be in a situation where you have complications like this. But yeah, I have no problem with this, checking in, you know, to the extent we can, and we'll try to, you might say, connect the dots as best we can.
I would appreciate that, because we, as I said at the opening, we have a project that came in right on budget. We had some problems that came up that were dealt with. Our workers, Cheevers, our architect, Al Pravandra, everybody did an exceptional job. Except for an elevator glitch, it was on time, it was on budget, everything was worked out. So it would just be nice to have it resolved. And I agree with Mr. Sullivan, to have that big a project and to have it with only one little glitch of one group not being paid is pretty remarkable. So all in all, I think the city, our public works director, our building supervisor, all of the people involved did a great job in bird dogging it. The police department did an exceptional job laying it out. I think we got a great value. We saved at least 10 million, probably closer to 12 or 15 from building a new building. And I don't want to see this take up a lot of time of our public works director, because again, it's a burden on his responsibility, and he doesn't need that. He's got too many other things to do. So if Larry could do it, we get it resolved, at least get them together to resolve it, I think it would be good.
Any other questions on claims? All right, let's move on. 5, no special presentation. 6, liquor license, Willow Springs Bottling Company. 7, none. 8, ordinances for public hearing. 8A, ordinance number 3782. B, ordinance 3783. 9A, ordinance number 3785. B, ordinance 378, Mr. Councilman, are we on ordinance number 3786?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Councilman Carmichael.
Thank you. Just a note, Chief Albert and I are working on a modification of the ordinance to permit at least temporary parking of a recreational vehicle or a trailer or some mechanism on the street in case you needed to move it out of your driveway and park it there overnight or whatever. Just get a period of time where it's not illegal to park a licensed, non-motorized vehicle on the street.
All right, so he'll revamp that. Thank you. 10, none. 11, resolutions, number 2014-27. B, resolution 2014-28. 12, current business. A, approval of the nomination. B, acknowledge nomination. C, authorizing cancellation of the council meeting. D, approval of application for waivers. C, approval of change order number 1. F, approval of change order number 1. G, request to extend approval of the preliminary plat. H, approve and authorize purchase. I, approve and authorize purchase of electric crane. J, approval of the proposal between White's Company and City of Bellevue. K, approve the purchase of Zoll. L, approve the purchase of a new canine. M, approve the interlocal agreement with Sarpy County. I have a question on that one. Chief Albert, we used 2 existing officers, not new hires, is that correct?
Correct. This has been on the books for several years.
All right. All right, that takes us back to number 5, executive session. Councilwoman Blood.
For the protection of the public interest and for the prevention of needless injury to the reputation of an individual, I move to go into executive session to discuss real estate negotiations for city properties located at 2216-2218 Franklin Street and 210204 West Mission Avenue. Discussion on the sale of or lease of city-owned property at Harlan and Betts Road adjacent to the SP Benson Fleet Maintenance Building for a digital billboard. Negotiations with World Baseball Village. Review the BPOA collective bargaining agreement. Review the BPFA collective bargaining agreement. Discussion on sale or lease of city-owned property on Cunningham Road.
Second. Please vote. My vote is yes.
All voted yes.
Good evening and welcome to the Bellevue City Council meeting for Monday, October 27th, 2014. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please rise. The Pledge of Allegiance will be followed by the invocation for Reverend Brian Rice, Christ King Lutheran Church, 7308 South 42nd Street. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Sanders and members of the council, thank you for inviting me to come and pray for these proceedings tonight. Not only is the church that I serve in Bellevue, but I'm a resident and I grew up here, and I think that Bellevue has a lot going for it. I think that the people who serve in city administration care a lot about this city, and this isn't just a place to live for a little while, it's a place to call home, and it is a community. And tonight I pray for our city and these proceedings, but do know that I personally pray for you all as well. I have been here when people have been angry and go into their rants and say that you're not effective or lack leadership and that sort of thing. And it hurts as a citizen to hear that. So I don't agree with all of you most of the time or some of the time, and you don't agree with each other, but you do have my respect and you do have my thanks. Let us pray. Good and gracious God, on behalf of all who are gathered here today, on behalf of all who live in our community, we give you thanks for the many and abundant blessings that we have. We give you thanks for life itself, for the measure of health that we need to fulfill our callings, for the sustenance and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. We lift up to you our mayor and our city officials, and in particular this assembled council. We ask that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of welfare and true needs of our people, a thirst for justice and for what is right, for confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, and personal peace in their lives and joy in their tasks. We ask for your blessing upon those who serve Bellevue in many and various ways, though often much of what it is that they do is unseen. Bless them with pride in its significance. Bless them with patience and encouragement when they receive the frustrations of others. We give you thanks for the completion of the new police facility, and we give thanks that they are able to work together under one building. And we look with great anticipation and your guidance as we seek to move more of our administration there. We pray for the agenda that's set before this council today, and let good judgment rule all decisions. Let what is decided tonight be that which would please you and what would benefit those who work and live in and around Bellevue. And it's in your most blessed name that we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Rice. I'd also like to welcome this evening Kevin Warnicki's UNO journalism students that are here this evening. I believe they're filled up a couple rows back here. Welcome. And also sitting in for City Attorney Pat Sullivan this evening is Mr. Tim Buckley. Item number 2, Sabrina, could you please call roll?
Mr. Carmichael.
Here.
Mrs. Saniak.
Here.
Mr. Cook.
Here.
Mr. Knutson.
Here.
Mr. Preister.
Here.
Mrs. Blood.
Present.
Item number 2A, this meeting will be conducted according to the Open Meetings Act, posted the entry to the council chambers. Item number 3, approval of minutes and advisory committee reports. We'll start first with Mr. Preister, Tree Board Committee report.
Thank you, Mayor. And in keeping with Reverend Rice's comments about being positive, I would like to share just the first couple lines of a letter that Green Bellevue received. Congratulations. The Board of Directors of the Nebraska Wildlife Federation has selected Green Bellevue to receive our 2014 Conservation Organization Award for the many contributions Green Bellevue has made to make Bellevue a more beautiful and environmentally friendly community. And I would go on to add, it's nice to be recognized, but I think the volunteers who have done the work, including a recent article that was in the Leader about the families and others that were at our library planting the trees around the parking lot to make it more friendly, and also the butterfly garden that's there using grant funds and volunteer labor, making a wonderful contribution. Also, in the most recent Leader, it talks about Sheltering Tree and a wonderful addition to our community. And in there, Shirley McNally, who organized this wonderful building that now houses residents that otherwise might have some challenges living in a regular society, gives credit to Green Bellevue for helping to give them a $1.2 million grant to help to build the facility. That $1.2 million grant came to them largely because even though the plans were already done, it went through the planning department, was approved, and after the fact, Green Bellevue found out about it and helped put them in touch with an architect who completely redesigned it in a green fashion, and it went back through the planning commission, was approved, the council approved it. As a result of that, there were 500 applications for these grants. Only 3 in the entire country were granted, and Sheltering Tree acknowledges Green Bellevue because the only reason they were selected was because of all the water features, capturing the water on the outside of the building, the energy efficiency components in the building, the solar collectors that will eventually go on the building. So she credits that $1.2 million to Green Bellevue. And I think it's good to acknowledge and note the good things that are happening in our community and the contributions. There will be an open house on Friday, October 31st at Sheltering Tree, which is at 1903 Gregg Road. So it's right across from Stella's. It's easy to find, and if anybody would like to go there, it's a wonderful place doing wonderful things with some young people. So in addition to that, and interestingly enough, right on the back of this same story, where Green Bellevue did 3 different ceremonies at Pawnee School, Gilder School, and Chandler View for Arbor Day programs, each the last 3 years. Each of those 3 schools were recognized as having improved the abilities of their students in reading and math. And they all got an A+ from Omaha Public Schools. And all 3 of those grade schools just happen to be in Ward 5, in the ward that I represent. And I am very proud of those students, the schools, and their relationship with Green Bellevue. So if you add up the 1.2 million that Sheltering Tree credits Green Bellevue with the $823,000 that Green Bellevue has provided to the community in grants and volunteer service, that's almost $2 million that Green Bellevue has contributed to improving the city of Bellevue in just its 5-year existence. So I appreciate the over 500 volunteers that come forward to make our community a better place, and rather than negative things, they're doing positive things and making our community a better place for all of us. So that concludes my report, Mayor. Thank you.
I appreciate that report, Mr. Preister. Are there any other reports? See none, thank you. 3A, approval of agenda. Councilwoman Blood.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Councilman Knutson. Do we have a discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. 3B, approval of consent agenda. Councilwoman Blood.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Councilman Preister. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 3C will then be under consent. Item 4, consent. Item 5, none. Item 6, liquor license. 6A, Willow Springs Bottling Company, Inc., doing business as Cornhusker Beverage Mart. Please come forward. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Subject, manager of Cornhusker Beverage Mart. We're seeking a one-day liquor permit to do, I think it's the 12th annual Daniel Gross High School wine tasting. And we've done it 11 times before, and we've had only good that comes forth. And it's a fundraiser for them. I know the last time I think they raised like $7,000 or $8,000 for it.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and open for public hearing on this item. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please do so at this time. I'll wait till he's, just in case. Thank you, Mr. Subject. Are there others? Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Councilwoman Blood?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve recommendation to the Nebraska Liquor Commission for Willow Springs Bottling Company, DBA Cornhusker Beverage Mart, for their application for a special designated liquor license for the annual wine tasting fundraising event at Daniel Gross Catholic High School, 7700 South 43rd Street on November 21st, 2014, from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. Something's missing.
4 p.m. to 11 p.m.
I guess that's all of it.
Ends there.
Second.
Second by Councilman Knutson. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 7, none. Item 8, ordinance for public hearing, second reading. 8A, ordinance number 3782. Sabrina, could you please read the ordinance?
Ordinance number 3782, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of Bellevue, Nebraska, as provided for by Article 3 of ordinance number 3619 by changing the zone classification of land located at 1101 Cunningham Road, more particularly described in Section 1 of the ordinance, and to provide an effective date.
Thank you. I'll now open for public hearing on this item. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance number 3782, please do so at this time. See none, I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Cook.
I don't know if the applicant or a representative for the applicant is here. If I could ask a couple questions real quick.
Scott Wilson, 202 Cunningham Road, Bellevue.
Mr. Wilson, it appears that you're trying to rezone, the proposal is a lot 1 of 34 acres that would remain in agricultural, and the second lot would be 5 acres. Is there a home on there, or are you planning to build a home here?
On the 5-acre piece,
Yes.
There is no home, and there will not be a home on there.
Okay, and then on the 34 acre, is that remaining agricultural?
It is.
Is there a
And
home on
there is a
there?
home on there, yes.
There's a home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Wilson? See none? Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Any further discussion? See none? Please vote. Oh,
No, no voting.
okay, third and final reading will be on Monday, November the 10th. Item 8B, ordinance number 3783. Sabrina, could you please read the ordinance?
Ordinance number 3783, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of Bellevue, Nebraska, as provided for by Article 3 of ordinance number 3619 by changing the zone classification of land located at 11822 South 36th Street, more particularly described in Section 1 of the ordinance, and to provide an effective date.
Thank you. I'll now open for public hearing on this item. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance number 3783, please do so at this time. See none, I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Cook?
I'm sorry, I wasn't here at the pre-council, so I do have a couple questions. Is there a representative or the applicant here? Are you Dr.?
Yes, I'm Eric Rockwitz. My residence is 13706 South 43rd Street in Bellevue.
Just a real quick question. Notice in the paperwork that you had mentioned that the use of the kennel shall be limited to short-term boarding and shall be only incidental to such hospital use. So as far as boarding or keeping animals there, and I'm going to make another statement on the email that you sent us about another location you have. But at the veterinarian clinic, here's what you're proposing to build.
Right.
And as far as boarding animals there, it would probably just be incidental. It will be incidental just to maybe surgery and short term. Would that be?
Correct. Just like any animal hospital, anything that is going to stay overnight is for hospitalization purposes. In other words, recovering from a surgery where it's either inappropriate or not soon enough to send them home. Same with any other medical condition where they would need to stay hospitalized on IV fluids, et cetera.
Okay. And then
Right.
you
So
did-
there's zero boarding
Okay.
technically going to happen
And you
there.
did send us an email that stated you have another facility
Correct.
farther north on 36th Street.
Correct.
And that would be more appropriate for the boarding of animals there.
And that is exactly what
facility-
we do there.
Okay.
That's
All right.
correct. That is my boarding business at that other facility.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just one final comment. Just want to thank you for picking Bellevue. Sounds like you lived in Bellevue for quite a while.
Only since the first grade.
And thank you, well, I don't want to say that. Of course, I didn't know. But thank you for, putting your business and building down here in Bellevue.
Absolutely. Wouldn't consider anything else.
Then I just got one question for Chris. Chris, could you explain the in and out as far as the movement of traffic? I know that there's 2 or 3 homes to the north. I don't know if that's a private drive or a street, and I know Roth Boulevard or Street is the road that comes from the elementary school up to 36th Street, and I know that we're looking at the improvements to 36th Street. So when this is all done, how will traffic move in and out of this clinic?
There's an existing driveway that serves the residences just north of this property. When 36th Street is improved in the next couple of years, that driveway will be, I'll say, reconfigured. The final design hasn't been done yet for that driveway, but there will still be a right-in, right-out access there to serve the homes and Dr. Rackwitz's veterinary clinic. The existing drive that goes down to Anderson Grove Elementary School, that's a private road. It's not a public street. That will go away once the 36th Street improvements are done, and there will be a public street that lines up with the entrance into the apartments on the east side of the street that will curve around down toward Anderson Grove and 38th Street. So that will be accessed from the school in the back of Dr. Rackwitz's facility to 36th Street, a full access there. He may or may not choose to use that new public street, 38th Street, that'll be behind his office.
Okay.
And then the current road, private road that serves the school will come out.
So will there be direct access from his parking lot to 36th Street, or will there be the access road that you may have to then travel a little south to get out on 36th Street? If I understood.
He'll have direct access from his facility via the shared driveway that serves the homes also to 36th Street. My understanding is that is probably going to be a right-in, right-out only, though. So traffic there will have to turn south.
Okay.
And if he connects with the 38th Street, then those people could go down to 36th Street on that 38th Street that comes around the new road and go north on 36th Street.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Carmichael.
Thank you, Mayor. Chris, sanitary and water, are they available in 38th Street or are they on 36th?
There's water on 36th Street. I think that I'd have to check on behind there. Sanitary would probably be behind there because it falls down.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Are there others who would like to speak on this item? Please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. The third and final reading will also be on Monday, November the 10th. Item number 9, ordinance for introduction, first reading. 9A, ordinance number 3785. Sabrina, could you please read the ordinance?
Ordinance number 3785, an ordinance to amend Section 2-95 of the Bellevue City Code pertaining to procedures for a veto by the mayor, and to provide for the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you. The second reading and public hearing on this ordinance will be on Monday, November the 10th. 9B, ordinance number 3786. Sabrina, could you please read the ordinance?
Ordinance number 3786, an ordinance to amend Section 18-76 of the Bellevue City Code pertaining to parking of recreational vehicles in residential zones, and to provide for the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you. This ordinance will have the second reading and public hearing on this item on Monday, November the 10th. Item number 10, public hearing on matters other than ordinance, none. 11, resolution. 11A, resolution number 2014-27. Mr. Preister.
I better go after the public hearings? Or no, that was the prior one. I move to approve resolution number 2014-27, authorizing the reimbursement.
Your microphone.
Move to approve resolution number 2014-27, authorizing the reimbursement of expenditures made by the city in connection with costs incurred with the construction of paving and other improvements in street improvement districts 2014-1 Cornhusker and 2014-2 Valley View and 42nd through the proceeds of the issuance of certain debt obligations in the amount of $633,000.
Second. Second by Councilwoman Blood. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. 11B, resolution number 2014-28. Mr. Preister.
I move to approve resolution number 2014-28, amending the master fee schedule to add fees for tree damage.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Blood. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 12, current business, 12A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and J, and K are under consent. Takes us to 12L, approve the purchase of K9. Councilwoman Blood.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of a new K9.
Second.
Second by Mr. Knutson. Any discussion? Mr. Cook.
I just want to make a quick comment. I want to thank the Bellevue Police Community Foundation for paying for this. I saw 2 checks written that totaled over $10,000.
Mayor?
Councilman Blood.
Actually, you should thank the community of Bellevue because it was the citizens that really paid for that through the foundation. And as the chair of the foundation, I just want to make that really clear.
I would say that also.
No. Thank you. Any other discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. 12M, approve the interlocal agreement with Sarpy County. Ms. Sanyuk.
Motion to approve the interlocal agreement with Sarpy County for the 2014-15 traffic grant.
Second by Mr. Knutson. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item number 13, public request to be heard. Any member of the public addressing the council shall abide by council policy resolution number 35 regarding the principles of conduct and decorum, which states any statement made during the city council meeting by the mayor, members of the city council, city official employees, or members of the general public shall not involve personal, impertinent, or slanderous attacks on individuals regardless of whether the individual so attacked is an elected official, a city official or employee, or member of the general public, and City Code 2-68 regarding the manners of addressing the council. Copies of the aforementioned rules are posted outside the council chambers. Speakers should limit their presentation to 5 minutes. See none, I'll go ahead and close.
Good evening, Chuck Frederick, 1511 Madison Street in Bellevue. And I am staying in Bellevue, even though one person publicly wanted me to move the pavilion. And, but I'm staying here. I think we have a good city. We have a lot of good people here. But just because I use pavilion as an example as to how the city should be run doesn't mean I don't care for Bellevue. I think the city pavilion is run a lot better than the city here is run, and things can change, and hopefully they will change. One thing I've talked about before, and I've talked about it many, many times, is that we don't do a monthly balance sheet. I get the financial statements every month from, I've been getting these for 5, 6 years now, and there's no place in here that has a monthly balance sheet. A monthly balance sheet is 1 page, assets and liabilities. And you can go to these other cities, Omaha, Council Bluffs, you go to Papillion, La Vista, and they can push a button and they'll give you a monthly balance sheet current as of that day. We don't even do one for a monthly balance at all. I think our people are being shortchanged in this city. We need to be looking more for what we can do for the public here. Our swimming pools, they couldn't have all got bad all in one time. In other words, there had to be a process where some needed to be fixed sooner than others. And all of a sudden, all of them are terrible now. And that should not have been. We should not have to close a library on Sunday. We should have 2 splash pads, one in Northwest Bellevue and the other one in Everett Park. The land that I've talked about and nobody's given me an answer is the land we have for the library at 36 and across from Anderson Grove Church. That's the land for the library, and you got it up for sale. And nobody has ever answered me why that would be. Why would you sell the land where you're going to put the library? All it's going to do is cost you more money. Also, a couple things that can be done, and they can be done quickly. It isn't that much money. You can take out a community betterment fund. Is that you took the library drop out of Ward 5 that was at Bernadette Church, and when they remodeled and took it out, the city never took it back. The priest, the father there, it's okay with him. One lady was told that was a problem. Then they was told there was no money. We should have a library box in Ward 5. Also, we should have a library box down in Southwest Bellevue until our library is fixed. It's just the things that if you want people to move to the city, and you want economic development, take care of the people that are here. I mean, that's the main thing. The other thing I noticed that because of that, I don't think you really respect the people in Bellevue that much if you won't do those things for them. The other thing is that I noticed that obviously people have told me that although Mayor Sanders reads this big thing about how we're supposed to treat you people when we talk to you, but it isn't the other way around. I noticed that at the last city council meeting, I happened to watch it again, and as I was talking, that flashed up to Mayor Sanders and Mr. Berlowitz, and you were laughing. That's no respect for me. I noticed also when I went to the ribbon cutting up in when the police chief for the new police chief station or the police station, there were every ex-city council person was recognized except me. Now, I don't know what you all have against me or the people who are not doing that, but I want the city better. And I hope that there will be some changes made, and I think this will make us a better city. There's just so many things that we can do to make it better. We can use buzzwords about doing this and doing that, but like I said, if you have a vision for the city, that's fine. But if you don't implement it, all it is an illusion. So we need to implement the things that we have a vision for, and we haven't done that yet. So I think that's all I have for the day, and I guess I didn't even use up my 5 minutes, so I'm getting better all the time. Thank you.
Are there others?
Alrighty, Ryan Stednitz, 1412 Warren Street. I'm a 1 year now fully resident in Bellevue with my own home, but I've been living here for 23 years. Recently, in my, I guess, being a first-time homeowner, I've kind of been paying more attention to local politics and everything like that. And what really kind of got me to look into it was the bike lane on Fort Crook Road, because I used to live off Thurston there by Bellevue West, and unfortunately, just kind of the way the lines were and how it was kind of confusing for people to drive on there, and for me and other high school kids out there, it wasn't very, I don't think it was well executed, and I don't think the money and all that was funded very well, and I've never just voiced my displeasure for it, so that's kind of why I'm here today. And I think it's kind of too big too. It's almost for a good landing strip for the planes to land on it, but I think we should be able to rework that and maybe get the lines work better so it flows better for the people driving. Also, I know some local repair people in the city, and I was pretty happy when that boat guy came in on Mission Street, and he had his little boat repair shop there, but it looked like there were some ordinances put in place that kind of ran him out of town, and also kind of hurt one of my mechanics, Terry's Autos, and they're going to have to change some of the policies they're going to have to do, and we really appreciate the council kind of review that ordinance that got passed and try to work with the business owners and stuff like that in Bellevue instead of trying to pass a new law to hurt them. And then also, I like to grow my own garden. I like to do my own type of things, and I was hoping you guys would look at the chicken ordinance you guys have in Bellevue and try to make it a little less strict, make it a little bit easier for people to get chickens in Bellevue, because when you call, they say you got to be a member of 4-H, 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 but there's other ways you can become a member, but I don't think the communication and the rules and all that almost kind of scare people so they can't get chickens to raise their own eggs and produce stuff for themselves. And that's all I'm trying to do is I'm just, 23-year-old first-time homeowner trying to, save some money, grow my own garden, and raise my chickens and have some eggs for myself. So hopefully the council will look at that, and hopefully I'll be at more council meetings as well and everything like that. Thank you for your time.
Are there others? See none, I'll go ahead and close the public request to be heard. Item number 14, adjournment. Have a motion, Mr. Preister.
Motion to adjourn.
Second by Mr. Cook. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you.